So that's a great question. So, let's use manufacturing as an example, because that's, we're thinking a little bit more of a labor job, right? So somebody's going to be in jeans and a t-shirt, and that's great, and I respect that. I would still recommend just taking it up a tier, just like presenting yourself just a little bit at a higher standard. If you're looking at an office, I know things have changed since, when I started my office duties back in the day, they're a little bit more relaxed, but there's still an expectation, right? If you're going to go work in a retail outlet, depending on that retail, dress appropriately to what that retail may be. So yes, I hope that answers your question, but I always think that you should just take it a step above, because it shows your discipline, and it shows your interest in and really just respect in your presentation, right? A little tip too, when you do that, it reflects back. People tend to automatically think that you're more detailed and organized. There's a little tip for you. So, you're probably, a lot of you are familiar with breath work, and just kind of taking that breath, and nobody even actually needs to know that you're doing it. You just kind of take that breath in and let that breath out, kind of find your center, your calm. You can find it in a place in your body. I tend to find it actually in my heart region, and I can just kind of look in my lung region and bring that calm. And that allows me to be a little bit more confident. If you do things that are very, like you move your hands a lot and you do that and you find that that might be distracting, then just take your one hand, cup it with your other hand, and set it nicely on and that's just a reminder that you're in control, right? You're in control. You're just going to keep that one hand stationary. They're kind of babysitting each other. And then with your legs, again, if you put your hand on your leg, you're just going to be conscious of that body part that tends to disrupt a little bit. Again, nervousness is a great thing. I mean, if we weren't nervous, then we're not passionate about what we want to do, right? So respect that, but take your power back and take your control back a little bit. So I guess on that side, and I don't want to be disrespectful to anybody that might be the interviewer and that's playing bad cop, but that's not a positive way to interview anyone, because you don't get to, because then you're on guard, right? Like when you're playing that role, you're always putting the interviewee on guard that they're in trouble or whatever the case may be, right? So I'm going to talk on two fronts. The first one is back to behavior again, and your physical, how you conduct yourself. This thing called mirroring, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I worked many years in loss prevention. So in catching the bad guy, where I was actually the bad cop. So, but how I came across is the good cop. So it allowed me to get you relaxed. So I would keep crossing and uncrossing my leg, or I would move my body in a way until you start repeating that back to me. And if you just play with that a little bit, like with your friends and family, and when they're doing, like whether you're going like this or you're going like this, and it's just small gestures, but when you're doing that, you're showing engagement with someone, and that you're showing that you're really, really paying attention to that conversation. If you can get, so with that, just is where I'm going is, if you can get the person, bad cop, mirroring you a little bit, they will actually come side to you, because now they're going to be really engaged in that conversation a little bit more. Another way, and I know this is pretty vulnerable, and I don't know how you feel about this, but really just expressing, I'm so excited to be able to have this opportunity, and I feel nervous today. So I do really want to share show the best of myself, but I am nervous today because I'm excited about the opportunity to work with you. Again, honesty for the win, right? Good cop would normally let you know that I understand just that you're nervous. Please relax. It's okay. We're just going to have a conversation. In fact, I go to the extreme. I don't even call it an interview. I call it a chat. Because when we think of the word interview, we think sort of, like there's a light over our head. And
it's too similar. It's too similar to the word interrogation.
Truly, 100%, right? So when we just say we're going to have a chat, so even when I email you or I call you and say, hey, Justice, I'm available on Tuesday afternoon. I just want to have a chat for 30 minutes with you. Would you be available? You're going to, sure, Pamela, I'm available, right? Even if you had something else booked, because I'm using that language, the likelihood that I get that 30 minutes with you is higher because I changed my language to make you feel comfortable. So language too, right? Language is super important on how we present ourselves, right? So one of the first things I always recommend with if you're new to interviewing and being the interviewer is always to sit back and relax. Like when you do that with your body, you still can be professional, right? You still can have good posture. When we come forward, naturally a combative way, right? Like we're coming into something. So it can be addressed two ways because, and there's an argument. I can come into it, I could appear combative, or I can come in because I'm incredibly interested in what you're saying. Again, the tone, my language, and my body they tell the story, right? So with that would be the first thing that I would do is to relax myself in order to relax the person in front of me. And then the trick that I talked to you about mirroring, I would start doing that with that person to get them just relaxed. And I would address it directly saying, Hannah, I understand you're really excited today and you're probably feeling nervous, but you know what? Let's just have a chat. And please relax. There's nothing to feel nervous about. I just want to get to know you, right? And again, open body language, right? So for the interviewer, it's very important as an interviewer that you are physically open, that you know what this means, right? Like you're closed off, no matter who you are. We don't want to do that on either side of the table. We want to be open and available. So when I was talking to Camelia about doing this with your hands, having that down on your lap is still being open. I'm still open here to conversation. Okay. So back in the day, I worked for a global retailer and I had an incredible opportunity in my training in leadership, and I took many leadership courses and continue to do so. But I had a behavioral specialist who was the head of our loss prevention. He was the director of our loss prevention, and he was a huge mentor in my life, actually. And he taught me so much about what that really looks like. So, yeah, that's kind of where my experience comes from. And I'm an avid book reader and Audible and a forever student, very much probably like all of you. But I constantly, psychology is my first love. For sure, Jess, like whenever you can go into an interview, and even if you're really happy at the job you're at right now, interview again and again and again. And it doesn't mean that you're going to take the job. It means you're practicing your skill, right? So super important when you can do that. The other side of that is you could do it with friends. Sure, practice with friends, practice with family. Sometimes the struggle is, and I'm a mom, so I'm gonna call it out. Sometimes it is, and maybe it's more for me because the career that I have, it's when I have my kids in front of me practicing. Of course, I'm gonna favor that. I think, you need to tell them that you're smarter. You need to tell them that you're better at this, right? So we're just a little bit biased, especially from a family perspective. If you can have a little bit more independent, or if you have the opportunity to have like a focus group or have like a small group of people together that you can practice off of, that would be valid too. So that's a good question. Society has taught us not to actually be prideful of all of those achievements and those things that we're really good at. And we've been sold a really disrespectful story, that we're ego driven or we're arrogant because we take pride in ourselves. And I really strongly challenge that philosophy. Be proud of what you've done, the experience, the schooling, the investment that you've made, in your life moving forward. And if you're really good at something, it's okay to say, I'm an expert at that, or I excel at that, or I'm very passionate about that. As much as it is to say, I'm passionate about that and I'm learning that part of my craft, and I want to learn more and I need a mentor to support me there. The other side is it's okay to like pound your chest a little bit and be proud of your achievements. I think we need to do that more. That's a whole different story, but that goes back to anxiety and self-doubt that it obviously is not serving anybody, right? I do believe it is to a degree. It's always better in person, whenever you can do that. The reality now is that there's so many hybrid positions, there's remote positions. So sometimes you'll never actually meet your boss in person, right? They could be on the other side of the world, or a different province. So you have to adapt to that. I think it's a skill, and I think it's a practice skill. I think everybody can learn what that looks like, what that feels like. When we're on camera with each other, definitely our tone shows more, our face shows more. Again, when I was talking about the resting, right? I can have a very serious face. Doesn't mean that I'm feeling serious, it's just my face, right? So being mindful of making those movements and those gestures, and again, the tone and a lightness to the conveying the conversation. For myself, and I'll give my secret away, is I really challenge your answers. And I mean that in a respectful way. It's not like a bad cop way, right? But when you say that you're really great at something, I'm going to ask for more information. I'm going to ask for more explanation. And I might even ask you the same question, just like assessments. You ever notice on assessments, they really ask you the same question like 5 different ways. It's the same being interviewed. Just asking that question, in multiple ways and seeing if we're still coming up with the same answer. If I'm feeling, like there's something to be said about our instinct, right? And our intuition. We all have it. It's not a singular gift for 1 or 10 people. We all are born with intuition. It's just whether you're exercising that muscle. So exercise the muscle. And especially if you're the interviewer, it's again, like I've done it for many years, but I definitely exercise that muscle in knowing whether that person's being honest or not.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it when I get an email directly after having an interview with someone. Like that is a huge checking of the box for me, that you're really interested, that you feel that it went well. I usually know how it went for you as we're closing up that interview. So if if you say, well, thank you very much for your time, versus thank you very much for your time, I look forward to hearing back from you, like almost that you have that prediction that you've got a foot in the door, right? Like that confidence is really, really important. I hope that I'll be chosen as a selected candidate. Please let me know the next steps. You can do that in an email as well. Really recommend saying that. I look forward to hearing back from you and what the next steps would be. Yeah. So have that. Even I know sometimes it's blind confidence, but if you really want it, you need to like rise up and say, it's mine, I'm going to take it. And it doesn't say anything I said doesn't show that show arrogance. It just shows confidence. I kind of give a different spin on this. And this is why one of the reasons why we do the practice an 80-20 rule is because when we look at the other side of and when we're looking at terminating an employee, the likelihood that we're going to terminate for behavior is very high. The likelihood that we're going to terminate because of your skill or your performance, your ability that way is very low. So that's where that's a big play in why we're looking at it through that lens. So if I'm bringing one of you to one of my clients, I want to make sure that your behavior represents what they're looking for in their company culture, right? So when I'm hiring for behavior, I'm looking for company culture as well, and that fit, right? So if you're how you adapt, what kind of leadership that you like, what kind of supervisor you like, what kind of team environment, all of that culture represents the behavior as well. So they all tie nicely into each other. So if you like a high level of autonomy and you don't really like to be part of a team, then that might fit for my client over here because you're going to work remotely and you don't need to be babysat. But someone else might want to have, I'm going to use like creative or marketing. They need to have that team environment. They want to be a collective group. Majority, I shouldn't say that, but majority of employers, when they're hiring, and not all employers are great interviewers, right? I mean, we've all had them, right? That's not their skill fit either. So when they're hiring, they're looking at, I need you to do the job. This is what I need you to do, X, Y, Z. They're not necessarily looking at you as the person and what you're going to be able to bring the position, right? Bring to the position, bring to the company, bring to the role itself. In fact, in Key Instincts, we don't do job descriptions. We help teach our clients to do career design because we always want that growth trajectory, right? And pulling out what you're best at. So what you might be hired for 2 years down the road, you should be expanding that in some sort of format. Really, and that is a fabulous question, Justice. Like, as much as you're being interviewed, you should be interviewing them to a degree. It has to be, and it doesn't have to be like an alpha on either side. It has to be like the conversation. Are we the right fit for each other? Do we connect well? Could we build a long-lasting relationship together? And I love that you brought up values, right? Because if it doesn't speak to your values, it's not going to work. And it's a waste of your time and their time. If they want to put you in a box, and sometimes that's the way it is, like, let's be honest, then, and if you don't want to do that and you don't want to be in that box and you know your growth is not going to be high, you're taking the job just to honestly put food and shelter, right, on the plate for yourself. And I respect that. It's always best to like take a breath physically and mentally and say, do I want to be aligned with this organization? Does this speak to where I'm going in my future? Especially for many of you that have been, you put a lot of money, we won't go there, but a lot of money into your education. You want to make sure you get that back. And it's not always compensation. We know that, right? It's not always about you want to make XYZ, you need to be a VP of a company. It's about what's important to you. Life work balance is huge right now, and it's a real thing. And there needs to be that flexibility. Maybe you need benefits, maybe you want 5 weeks vacation, but you're willing to start with a lower wage and know that you could have time off to go snowboarding if you're in Alberta 8 months out of the year. Right? So so take a look at the whole picture. Don't take the job just because you need a job. Don't do that to yourself, and don't do that to a potential employer. Yeah, advance the company, advance yourself, right? You know, I always put an analogy as, you know, sitting and eating at the table. What gives you the right to sit and eat at that company's table? So you have to have that confidence to say, I can bring this, this, and this to the table. And because I'm doing this, this is going to automatically support the success of the organization, you know. And I know we don't have time to talk about all of that today when it comes to company strategy, but I am a huge advocate on the fact that any company's success, that foundation, that bedrock is based on the people that are helping it. It's not about the widget. I don't care what the widget is that you're selling. It's the people that are supporting that success. So when we do that, we build healthy cultures. When we build healthy cultures, we lessen turnover. We have internal development. It's just a win-win. It's just a beautiful, lovey-dovey relationship, as Justin said. Great.
Super. Well, in the interest of not taking up too much of your day here, since we're at 2:20, we'll probably end it there. But I just wanted to thank you again so much for your time and all of your expertise. It was great to have a refresher, and I picked up some new advice here as well. So I'm really, really grateful to have all of this information at our disposal.
Well, you guys are so welcome. It was like, this is my break for the day. So I love spending time with you. And I wish you all success. You have my information, and don't hesitate to reach out. You know, if you need to shoot me an email, you have a quick question, I'd be more than happy to support you on your journey and what your next path looks like, or your existing path, and how that can be better for you.
Well, it's super appreciated. So thank you so much, and stay warm out there.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
You
Bye.
too.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Bye.